I imagine that I would have had a lot of disheveled decks. And, well, now that I'm looking around, it's like I have quite a few disheveled decks. Some of them are, like, I have to be honest, they're quite old. They've been with me a long time. Some of them I don't even use anymore. Or I use really, really rarely. So I'm going to start with, but I'm going to start with a cheat. I'm going to start about one that I received with wear. And it's a deck I already had. I already had this deck. It was someone gave me theirs that they were discarding because they disliked the person that gave it to them, or I don't know what the story was. But anyway. And I brought it home, and it had a lot of damage. So I ended up, it was like my first, I was into that whole modding decks thing. It was my first full mod where rebacked, trimmed, edged. But I didn't use it for quite some time, so I ended up passing it on. And almost, I don't know, just recently, so I recently passed it on. I passed it along, gave it away, whatever, donated. All the decks I got rid of, most of them, none of them were sold. They were all just given away. It was just easier to do that, and I feel good about it, I gotta tell you. Okay. Anyway, so this one is Jamie Sam's. This is Sacred Path cards, and these were obtained at a secondhand bookstore for something like stupid, like I don't know, 50 cents. I don't know. And I don't know if you could see, but they're pretty worn. Oh, there it is. They're pretty worn. What is it? What do we call this? We call this the foxing. And the edges, and again, it's not me that used them up, it's not me that wore them out, but they're nice and soft, they're broken in. I'm not going to edge them, I'm not going to give these the same treatment I gave the other ones. The other ones I was just trying to change the whole energy of it, and also I got caught up in the whole creative process of modding decks, and right now I gotta tell you, I'm just not there. Who knows, that might change. Right now, I'm just not there. But I love it. It didn't come for 50 cents. It didn't come with the guidebook or anything like that. And doesn't matter because I actually know these very well. But pretty happy to have these. But these were not worn by me. So now I'm going to go in chronological order, or I don't know. Okay. Let's start with these live in here. These are my playing cards. That I used for many, many years for divination, for divination, cartomancy, all that good stuff. See, the edges are nice and they're not stark white. Well, it's hard to tell, right? There's a bit of that wear, as you could see on the backs. Not bad, considering that this dates back to 1997. So sometimes it's the quality of the cards that prevents them from showing the wear that they would have. Other times it's just because, well, if I'm not using them all the time. Oh, sorry, just painted my nails, and what do you want to do? All right. Like you care. I'm so sorry. I'm so out of, like, I don't do this. I used to put out a video every, a couple of times a week. Then it was once a week, and now it's like once every, I don't know, month. So the flow is not there. All right. Next one is also a deck I've had since 1997. This is the original printing, or the first printing of Karma cards by Monty Farber. And these I actually edged with a gold Sharpie just a couple of years ago, because they were showing a lot of the wear on the edges, especially on the backs. and on the fronts. And this worked out perfect because it's a nice thick cardstock, right? So this worked out perfect. But before I etched these in this gold marker that wasn't a Sharpie, I wish I could remember. It was one of those dollar store off brands. Beautiful. Sharpie is garbage. Anyway, so I don't know. Does that one count? The reason I showed you this one's gonna. So I had another old deck that I wanted to rehab, and this is the box. It's the Angel Oracle by Ambika Wouter, and as you can see, look at oh my God, look at the wear on this box, people. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, I love wear. Anyway, so this is what the cards look like. I tried to edge these, but the edges were too fuzzy from the foxing. It turned out a shit. Look at that. They just look dirty. They look dirty is what they look like. But this is like a thick greeting card, and oh, I love these. This is still in print. Playing cards, you know, you could just get, right? But this is still in print. Monty Farber's Karma Cards is still in print. This is still in print on nicer cardstock, and I think it's gold edged and stuff like that. But I love mine. I don't know can you see? Yeah, can you see the wear? Yeah, and then the front's not so bad, but the back, oh my God, the back looks. These. And this is going to tie into another subject I want to talk about. These were with me through really hard times, and I don't reach for them anymore. They're retired. They're on my shelf. They have a place of honor because of how they were with me through a really tough time. They got me through a lot of shit. All right. I have a few more. My next one is, oh my God, my Centennial. I got my Centennial in 2018. This guy has, I don't know how many hundreds of readings under its belt. But look at it. This is good cardstock. Like, this is good quality cardstock. It doesn't look as used as it has been. Some of the, like, there's some scuffing, but you can't really see it, right? But they're nice and they're softer. As you see, the edges have darkened, like they've darkened so that, you know, it looks pretty. I don't know, it's pretty cool. Anyways. Again, like I said, I don't treat my stuff poorly. I'm very careful with my things. So it doesn't show on camera, but this is actually, there's quite a bit of wear on these cards. And there's some cards that are creased. But this is like a really, if you're looking for a lighter weight, and you want a good, you want a good one. Like some of the edges are starting to, I guess, they're starting to, it's almost like it's like, when fingernails split, doing that a little bit on the edges. But then I just place it back. Anyway, if you're looking for a good Rider Waite deck, and I don't know, I know there's like a bazillion of them out now. Like when I was shopping around for one, this is how I ended up on YouTube looking at deck reviews. This is how I ended up buying a whole bunch of fucking decks that I didn't need. But there's so many to choose from, but this to me is still like the best one. With the lines are nice and clean lines. The coloration is consistent. I have one that I'm gonna have to go get. I'm gonna pause the video to go get it. But I have an original Rider Waite, and the coloration is not consistent. If the coloration was consistent, if the coloration was consistent and the faces weren't red and sunburnt and it's just a hot mess in terms of printing, I wouldn't have gone looking for another one. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I don't know. You've already seen this deck. Everyone that has a Rider-Waite probably has it. So let's move on. The last two are my my oldest tarot deck, because I just realized that I showed you Oracle decks, right? My oldest tarot deck that I've used, my oldest tarot deck that I purchased brand new and used for 25 years. And the other one is another one that I purchased used, vintage used, but I got it with no wear on it whatsoever. So I'll start with that one, and that's my first Thoth Greenie. When I received it, the edges were clean. It came without a box, but the edges were clean, and now they show this kind of wear in the corners, and they smell like the incense and the oils and whatever, because I use this for reading, for magical work, for whatever I use cards for, right? And I noticed before Anna did her video that this is a VR too. I was playing, because normally, I don't know what you guys do, but normally when I do this kind of stuff, like whether it's card reading, my esoteric practices, I do them in the evening. I do them in dim lighting, candlelight, or whatever. It's not something I do in the stark daylight. I'm not the girl that takes my decks out into nature. I wish I was, but that's not my thing. Everything is secretive for me. I'm of a different generation, people. Everything is secret. So, here you go. And I saw this and I thought, oh my goodness, I have been using this daily. Okay, some days I miss, you know what I mean? It's like everything else. But I have been using this one since I got it 2.5 years ago. And I say my first one because this is the one that I purchased off eBay, that I watched for 6 months, and finally I kept making offers. I'm going to tell you, people, if there is a deck that you are meant to work with, I echo Sylvain's, what he said was, it will find you, and it will find you affordably. And this is absolutely true. I'm experiencing it. Now, it could be that Jupiter is smiling upon me because I gave everything away. Okay, so there's that, right? So Jupiter could be smiling upon me, and because I gave everything away, all the decks away, and because I won a greenie in a draw that actually came in the original box with the pamphlet and all, and the title card and everything. This, I bought it on eBay, and I paid it, I want to say, it was like $90 US. That included shipping from Europe, right? So people, please don't. And someone was, anyways, I'll talk about that one later. All right. But, so, disheveled decks. So look at this. When I saw this, I don't know. It's like there's a satisfaction to see the wear in a deck. The fronts don't show it at all, and there's some. Look at that. Like they don't. The fronts are like pretty nice. They're not worn or anything like that, but you could see the foxing, and it's. These are a little stiffer than the greenie I won in a draw. This is a stiffer cardstock, and when I'm having a flare of arthritis in my hands, I can't riffle and bridge this deck at all. And but I don't flare all the time. However, I will tell you, I will never purchase a deck that I know the cardstock is like linoleum tile. And I'm finding that this trend towards thicker cardstock, 500 GSM, I exaggerate, but so do they with their 350, 400. Matte, if it has a bit of slip to it, okay, fine. But, mostly that rubberized finish, that's ridiculous for anyone who actually wants to, fan out their cards and actually use them as cards. But also it's ableist. And, I know, because this is my field, that a lot of people have wear and tear arthritis in their hands. You don't have to have an autoimmune arthritis. A lot of us have wear and tear arthritis in our hands from working with our hands our whole freaking lives. And when you create an object, a product that I can't use because my hands are small and I have arthritis, already you're excluding the people who have small hands and arthritis. Then okay, I'm going to go on a tangent. Okay, it's a quick one. Between cost and the fact that they're unusable, who are you making these decks for? And it excludes a whole bunch of people, right? Between the cost and the fact that they're not, you can't shuffle them, you can't handle them. I don't know. Everybody's talking about inclusion, but the tarot deck industry, specifically the independently produced ones, they're for rich people. They're for rich people who probably can hire someone to shuffle them for them, to shuffle their cards for them if they have arthritis in their hands. All right, back to disheveled decks. My last one is no surprise. If you've been watching me for 5 minutes, you've seen my Morgan Greer from 1995. All right, yes, I've had this grubby thing since 1995. The edges used to be stark white. I actually have an Italian version of this exact one from the 90s. And oh my God, it's like, this one is really bad. This one has been, I've had to wipe pizza grease off of it. This has been on on so many surfaces that, it's a beautiful cardstock you could just wipe clean, but it's not plastic. Anyway, so yeah, it's again, it's kind of greenish, it's kind of gross, which brings me to the subject I wanted to tack on to this whole my disheveled decks. Those of us who use tarot, oracle as a spiritual tool, or not, because see, the cards don't know why we're using them, and then energy doesn't know if we're using them magically or psychologically or for insight or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's an object that we're handling. And I wanted to just tack on to this VR or this video response to Anna Astro Lady Tarot. They hold energy. So for instance, I was giving the example, these two decks saw me through some really big shit. They saw me through, these were in my life during the coming of age. And I mean coming of age like in your late 20s, when you finally figure out who you are and you look around and perhaps you made some life choices that are not who you are and you just figured it out. These were with me during that time. They were with me also during a time of grief, when my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer. When I was with grief, when I realized that where I lived was no longer for me and it was time to leave. These guys were with me. And I have to tell you why Sometimes I'll try to give different examples, okay? So you can have a tarot deck and you notice that suddenly it's all doom and gloom. Every reading, every time you draw a card, it's all doom and gloom. It's all doom and gloom. It's Seven of Swords, not Seven. It's Nine of Swords, Ten of Swords. It's Eight of Swords. It's Three of Swords. It's all the dark cards are coming out. All the sadness. It's all, every question you ask looks like it's, the prognosis is negative. All the situations you bring to the cards that you want to know the outcomes to, the prognosis is negative. The cards feel like they've turned against you. Like I've used this term. I've used this turn of phrase. The cards feel like they've turned against you. The cards feel creepy. Like my first two Rider-Waite decks in the yellow box Rider-Waite. I don't have them anymore because my first one started to freak me out because it was just creepy, and so was my second one. Now I'm of two minds about this. So that time in my life when that happened, there was a lot of bad shit going on in my life, and there was a lot of negative energy. I hate that term. It's so fucking new age. It doesn't even encompass. There was a lot of sadness and contention, and there was a lot of. It was a very low time in my life, and it was very hopeless. And when you're a young adult, man, it's like all of you. If you're watching this, you've been through your teens and you're in your early 20s. You know how fucking hopeless and it can be for some people, right? It's like it was. Anyways, for me, it was hard. Of course, because the deck is a mirror. The tarot, not just the deck. The tarot is a mirror. Of course, it's mirroring back to me what's going on with me. And so, but these are the images I'm looking at. So we start to attribute that sadness, that grief, that low time in our lives with the images we're looking at. Because it's human nature to do that. But also the object itself. This deck is heavy. This deck will always be heavy. Now, I didn't just start practicing magic yesterday. I am a seasoned practitioner. I have removed evil eyes. I have removed the evil eye probably. I can't even tell you how many times. I have been involved in exorcisms as a part of the team. I have been involved in removing curses. Yet, a magical tool, especially a tarot deck, oracle cards less, but a tarot deck, once it takes on that heaviness, you could freaking smudge it all you want. You can you could bury it in salt. I buried this one in salt. You could bury it in salt. You can pass it through smoke. You could pass it through fire. You could do whatever. You could rinse it under cold water if it's a plastic deck. You can bury it in the ground and then go dig it back up to see if, no, you can't. That energy remains in the deck. And then you have to decide whether or not, okay, well, do I want to keep this? May I keep this one? This one weighs like a brick. Like, I actually compared it to a brand new one. This one is a brick compared to the same deck, on the same cardstock, the same vintage. The only difference is that one's in Italian and this one's in English. This is a brick. It's a brick because in it is all my pain, my fear of the time that it got transferred into these, because we're using our cards with our hands. We're transferring this energy into the cards. And if you ever had a deck that you and the cards get ripped or lost, or the cards or the deck just looks like myrtleized, they're taking an energy hit for you. These are spiritual tools, whether you recognize it or not. This is the mode of communication between you and spirit, between you and your spirit court. Whether you acknowledge they exist or not, who do you think is the voice? Did you ever think about that? Everyone talks about, oh, my deck, this deck has this personality and that personality. Whose personality is in the deck? The deck is an object, and I tend towards animism, and I will tell you that, I believe that objects have sentience, or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to go into it in this video, but I'll tell you one thing: the voice doesn't come from here. The voice comes through here when you're holding these. So this deck is a brick, because this deck absorbed all my fears of the time, all my fears, my grief, my sorrow, all my despair, but it also shared in my joy and in hope and faith and love. So that's why this one is really heavy. But sometimes, and this one, I won't use it for, I won't read for other people with this one. I'll use it to talk like I'm doing today, right? But this one has long since been retired. But I don't feel the need to get rid of it. But sometimes you'll have a deck that you used a lot to work through grief, to work through fear, anxiety, depression, whatever it is that you're working with that deck on, what you're working on with that deck. And suddenly the deck turns on you. Remember what I said earlier about the deck turning on you? Sometimes, because going back to, see, this is, of course, if you think that these are just psychological archetypes, Jungian archetypes and stuff like that, well, good for you, okay? But for those of you who are watching and you recognize that these they hold spirits. Now, they don't hold spirits when they're at rest, but they certainly are a spiritual tool and a communication tool with spirits when you pick them up. But even at rest. Remember way back when I started talking about deck overwhelm, all the decks on my shelves sounded like phones that were ringing? Well, sometimes the spirit that you communicates to you through this may not be savory. Like spirits are like people, right? It's like, I always have to explain to people, just because someone died doesn't make, you don't go from being here to dying and then you're handed a white robe, a pair of wings, and a harp. That's not the way it is. That's why again, going on a tangent, when it comes to ancestral work, it's like I don't work with relatives that I knew in life. And maybe not even the previous generation, because I kind of know who they are, and they still are that. You can romanticize all you want. That is your choice. I live in the real world. I had real life experiences that have taught me don't romanticize the dead. They are still who they were. All right, talk about a tangent. Anyway, back to a deck, and not this one because I don't have one like that anymore. But suppose you're using a deck, and you're using whether it's a tarot or an oracle deck, and this happens more to tarot decks because tarot decks are esoteric. Creepy decks. Creepy decks tend to attract a lower vibration spirit. You can have your creepy aesthetic, and you can enjoy your creepy decks. No skin off my nose. Do what you want. I'm just telling you that me, hashtag no creepy decks. Done with that. Because myself and other people I've spoken to have had the experience of the creepy deck that just starts to give some threatening kind of readings. Seriously, people. Negative readings. The person using it actually feels like whatever energy is coming through is does not have their best interest at heart, is not impartial, is actually a little, skewed or twisted, and you're not imagining it. So if you're watching me right now and you're sitting there going, yeah, you're not imagining it. If you have a deck, whether it's creepy looking or not, because it doesn't matter to the lower entity, like the lower vibration entity, it doesn't matter. These are portals. These are portals. They don't care. They'll come through the fucking Happy Tarot or whatever it's called with the little cartoons on it. They'll come through on a creepy looking deck. They don't care. So don't think that I'm just like, I'm throwing shade on creepy decks. But what I'm trying to tell you is that these are portals, okay? And if you sense that the deck you're using is giving you the creeps, trust yourself. Don't go to YouTube to see how everybody loves this deck and how incredible it is. Trust your own instinct. I had a deck around the time that I think it was what month are we in? Anyways, I want to say it was this winter. Oh my God, could it be last year? Who the hell knows, right? Anyway, I had a deck. It's mass market. It's very, it was popular for a little while there, or probably still is. I don't know. And it was creepy as shit. Whatever was coming through on that deck, whatever was using that deck as a portal, or whatever was coming through was creepy as shit. I had to bury it. So let's go on. What do? Well, there's a person that let's talk about spiritual hygiene of your cards. 1, don't put them on the floor. Treat them like what they are. They are spiritual tools. And even if you don't believe they're spiritual tools, will it bother you to treat your things with respect and not throw them on the floor? So don't put them on the floor. Always put them away when they're not in use. So it's one thing to have a card or something on your altar, and I'm pointing over there because I have cards on my altar. It's I have a card on my altar. It's one thing to have a card out on your altar for either that's the energy of the day or for manifesting or whatever, but the rest, put it away. either in a cabinet, in its own designated box or pouch. I'm going to take this opportunity to show you. I finally finished this pouch that I started 2 years ago. So, yeah. But you know what I mean? Treat your spiritual tools with respect. If you like keeping them in the retail box they came in, that I can't with the retail box, but put them away and keep them in a place of, I don't say it has to be a place of honor, but keep them clean and treat them with respect. If you have a deck that's turned on you, you got this deck and it's like, it just gives you the creeps. You know what I mean? And there's no diagnostic for this. There's no diagnostic test. There isn't an accurate test to prove, is this deck possessed or whatever. No. This is purely subjective. If you have a deck that, even though you love it, is giving you the creeps, don't burn it. Don't burn it. Because if we go by the assumption that an entity has taken residence in that deck, burning it just releases that entity into the world to go and slip into something else. So this is like 101. This is like protection magic 101. You take that deck, you bind it, literally with twine or whatever, stick it in a plastic bag or saran wrap or whatever, and bury it in the cold, cold ground. Done. That's what you do with any object that you feel has some sketchy energy to it, that you feel might be inhabited. That's what you do with it. You bury it in the cold, cold ground. If you don't have access to the ground to bury it, stick it in your freezer until you could go somewhere where you could bury it. Throwing it in the garbage, it works out because it'll end up in the landfill, is fine. Seriously, people, just throw it in the fucking garbage. That was a total tangent. Are you still with me? Okay. So we talked about, I talked about, what do you do with objects? And again, it's just upkeep. Oh, what happens? I like used decks. Okay, I love a good bargain. I love acquiring. I will always choose vintage over brand new any day. I will always choose pre-loved over brand new any day. It's just who I am. I've always been that way. It's not, for me, it's not a new trend or new whatever. It's not new for me. It's always been that way. So for instance, when I got this guy, this guy was pre-owned. But much to, if you watch Tarot Tube in the last couple of years, it sounds like this is the most popular deck. Most popular tarot deck. It is not. It has never been the most popular tarot deck. This is why you can get vintage copies of these pretty easily if you just put it out there that you want to get one. And I'm very grateful because I've been able to get 2 more vintage thoughts and a one with 3 megas just recently. I seem to be a thoth magnet for decks, but that's more has to do with the fact that the truth is they are not as popular as it would seem from the few of us that talk about it a lot. All right. So we talked about treating your decks with respect. Excuse me. Put them away when you're not using them. Don't just leave them out all over the place. Have a dedicated storage place for your tarot decks. Tarot decks more than oracle decks. I find oracle decks are more like books. They have this, to me, oracle decks have the same energy as books, whereas tarot decks are esoteric tools. And especially, especially the ones that are esoteric, the ones that are traditional. But it's better to be safe than sorry. Treat all your tarot decks with respect and put them away in a dedicated place. Make sure that the place that you store your tarot decks, that you are constantly, if you're a magical practitioner, 99% of your practice should be protection magic. Cleansing and protecting. I'm going the wrong way. Cleansing and protecting. Cleansing and blessing. That should be 99% of your practice. If you're a magical practitioner, has to be protection magic. Period. And your wherever you store your spiritual tools, whatever they may be, you need to have that place warded. I know a lot of people like the witchy room tour and all this stuff. And I don't know, think about it. Do you want to show are you showing your altar? I have one behind me, but that's just a working altar. What I mean by working altar, it's literally a space where I do stuff. But I don't have that on camera. And it's warded up, and whatever I put in that cabinet is inside a warded, it's got energy warding it and all this stuff. Okay. One last thing. Going back to I love vintage decks, and sometimes you receive a vintage deck or book, which I forgot. I do have one Disheveled book to share. I keep it in here. I know, squirrel. This is my first astrology book. If you've been watching me for any amount of time, look, it even has my maiden name on it. July 1986 is when I got this. And this actual copy, I think, was already 10 years old when I got it. Copyright 1968, and this is the 18th printing, 1974, pretty close. But the pages weren't yellowed when I got it. It was like a brand new paperback that someone never read. And I keep it in this funky, look at this. This must have been a thing in the 70s that people had these covers for their paperback books. I wish I could find another one. Maybe I'll make one. This has a bit of leather, wool. It's freaky. Anyway, has a little pocket for snacks. I want to share something. Here it is. I love old books. See, this one's mine. It's been with me forever. It smells like old paper. It has that vanillin scent that old books get. But sometimes they're stored in a basement, a musty basement. It's really dry where I live. But I've received things that once lived in a musty basement, and I've come up with a device that I use. It's pretty low tech. It doesn't always work. I had a Tarot of a Moon Garden that I had gotten a 90s. Sorry about that. I had Tarot of a Moon Garden in 1995, and my copy lives with a friend in Montreal. And they asked me if I wanted it back, and I kind of remember I was pretty sad when I got it, so no. But anyway, so I had gone looking for a 1990s copy of that same tarot deck. Tarot of Moon Garden, and I got one from eBay, and it smells like musty basement. So I tried airing it. I tried everything to. I did everything to it, and I just couldn't get. I couldn't get the smell, and it was heavy. So I had other people, someone else's shit on it, like in terms of energetic shit on it, right? Not shit. Anyway. But you know what? If it wasn't energetically heavy, I probably would have held on to it. But it was energetically heavy, and I thought, oh no, you know what? Me knowing this deck the way I do, I had it way back in the day and whatever. It's like there was no difference really between the one printed in Belgium and the one printed in Italy, which is the one that's currently available. Except that the cardstock is more flexible on the current one that's available, and the Moon Garden, like the one printed in Belgium, was a bit hard to shuffle. It's not really tough cardstock, and it's a little murkier. Like the current one, it's like they up the brightness a little bit so it's clearer to see, and I'm older, so I'm happy with that one. All this to tell you that I got rid of it because it was heavy with someone else's energy. But what if you receive a deck that's just a little stinky? If you receive a deck that's just a little stinky, I've devised a little, what I call, I haven't patented yet. I haven't registered the patent yet because, whatever, it's a box. I call it the De-Funkifying box. And in it, so these are some items I use to defunkify, whether it's a tarot deck or an old book. Does it work? It works as long as the object, the book, or the tarot deck remains open to air after it's been defunkified. I noticed that if I put the deck back in the box, then it's like it kind of becomes funky again. But anyway, you'll see what I mean. So this is a regular shoebox. And in the shoebox is some tissue paper. And there's also newsprint. I will put newsprint in here as well because it absorbs odors. Now, I live where it's very dry. If where you live it's not very dry, you're probably going to need a lot of desiccant. I keep these things, you know how everything we buy nowadays comes in one of these? I literally throw them, I have a little drawer like in my craft supplies where I just keep all of these things, and I'll put a whole bunch of them in this box. Here's a box that smells like basement. Inside it has a dryer sheet. And it goes in the defunkifying box. Okay, this one doesn't smell anymore. But inside it also has a little silica package. Okay? Put in the defunkifying box. You could put charcoal. Charcoal will absorb moisture and odors. I used a odor, this is odor free. This is like the dollar store brand, right? But there's the brand you find at Home Depot or whatever. It's called Air Sponge. Canadian Tire if you're Canadian. Home Hardware. But this is a dollar store one, and look, it just shrivels up as it absorbs odor. It doesn't stink or anything like that, and I don't think the dollar store one's as good as an air sponge, but the defunkifying box, people. So give it a try. It's just a regular shoebox. You leave it in there. It could take a few weeks, but it has to be in don't put it in your basement. Keep it somewhere dry. You can actually put this out in the sun because the box will, it's in, whatever's in here is protected by the box. I wouldn't take a tarot deck or something that would get bleached by the sun and put it outside in the sun. But you could just spread out all the cards in a box like this and put the silica packets, newsprint, or charcoal, whatever it is. If you're using charcoal, just make sure that it's not like staining your stuff, staining your cards. You can have like the charcoal could be like wrapped in like a porous paper, such as newsprint. Stick this guy in the sun, just outside somewhere safe where it's not going to get stolen or something like that, or in a windowsill or whatever, until the odor's gone. Does it work? Yeah, it works. Is a 50-year-old tarot deck still going to smell like a 50-year-old tarot deck? Yeah, but at least it gets that strong, pungent mildew stench out of it. So that, ladies, gentlemen, everyone, hey, if you know, so like for people that don't identify as lady or gentleman, what's the term? What do I say? Please, in the comments below. I would love to know that. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, this is the De-Funkyfier. Ruse De-Funkyfier. Okay, maybe I'm gonna. That's enough with the infomercial about the Ruse De-Funkyfier. But if you have an old book or something that smells like mildew, like of course, if it's fabric, you could just wash it. You could just launder it. You hang it on a clothesline. If we're gonna do household hints, if you have something that's like white linen, white cotton, white linen, natural fibers, and it's yellowed from years and years of just being stored or whatever, and you're like a vintage freak and you just freaking love this kind of stuff like I do, simple fix, launder it and then just hang it outside for a couple of weeks. But the sunlight and the night air will bleach it back to white. You heard it here, folks. All right, that's it for me. Before I go into something else, did I show you the new? Yeah, I finally finished this bag that I started a couple of years ago. Instead of putting a button on it, I just put a little loop that keeps it shut. I guess I'm feeling like I'm getting back into the fiber crafts, so that's what I'm going to be doing. And yeah, so that's it. So I showed you my disheveled decks. We talked about spiritual tools and spiritual hygiene. We talked about the De-Funkyfier. And on that note, I'm going to let you go. And wherever you are in the world, thank you for watching. And I'm wishing you all a beautiful day.